Wherever you are in the world, welcome to another edition of Jerry's Take on China from a hotel in Xian. Please don't forget to like, share, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. If you're a recent subscriber, thank you for joining me on this journey to putting right some of the wrongs that have been said about China. I left Wuhan on Wednesday morning last week on a train which terminated at Xian, but I was destined for Luoyang in Henan. On Friday, I left Luoyang by train, heading to Xian. On both occasions, I was subject to intense security at several checkpoints. My well-thumbed passport was inspected at least 10 times in 4 days. Traveling on what is an efficient but bureaucratically heavy system requires a little more patience when heading towards Xian at the moment. But given what's going on here, it's definitely necessary, and as far as I'm concerned, worth the trouble. Currently, a meeting is taking place in Xian. As I wrote this, I was hurtling towards that city at over 300 kilometers per hour for an entirely different reason, but very interested in what's going on in my destination city. It'd be fair to say that there are two competing entities on the world stage right now. The Group of Seven, or G7, as it's more widely known, have had for the last several years a rather unsuccessful agenda of containing, managing, or adapting to a threat they perceive China poses. What this threat consists of is not entirely clear, but it seems to be China's economic growth rather than any military threat posed. In terms of nominal GDP, China has usurped all but one of them and is poised to usurp the last one in just a few years. But even the mighty USA has been overtaken in every other measurable metric except military power. And while China has indeed developed and expanded its defense capabilities, it's shown no inclination to use them for the same purposes as those members of the G7 nations have historically done. China is dealing on economic terms with countries that were once colonial subjects of the G7. In Africa, Latin America, other Asian countries, and even the Pacific Island nations. What China has done with all its dealings is shown the world that there is an alternative to coercive and exploitative power. China's never asked any of these countries to choose between the G7 or them, nor has it sent a military presence to enforce or encourage locals to remain subservient to them. It hasn't, as was succinctly and virally pointed out by the president of Zambia's Socialist Party, Fred Mbembe, it hasn't killed their leaders and tried to impose their form of democracy on any African nation. What China has done is installed infrastructure where there was none. It's provided business opportunity where there was exploitation. And other African leaders have also pointed out it's built much needed institutions where they were once given churches and chains. What's happening in Xian? A meeting of 5 Central Asian country leaders. It's unrelated but strongly connected to what will happen in Japan when the G7 leaders meet just a couple of days later. The future of the world is changing. It isn't going to be dominated by the same few countries which dominated the last 500 years. People talk of multipolarity and a changing world order. This meeting in Xian, which may seem unimportant on the basis of current GDPs, is a very significant signpost to a very different future. There will be people in the world who've never heard of some of these 5 countries involved in this meeting. So let's have a quick look first at all of them. Who's involved other than China? Tajikistan is currently a very poor region. It's landlocked, but it has reserves of gold, silver, and uranium. More importantly, it has a great deal of water which can be harnessed for electricity generation, and it was Vice President of the USA just a few short months ago reiterating what the United Nations has been saying for a long time. Water is scarce. There may be wars over it in the future. Kazakhstan is even better blessed with natural resources and could become one of the top 10 producers of oil and gas in the world if properly developed. It's number 11 now. It too has rich mineral deposits, with silver being large, but uranium likely to be the second largest deposits in the world. Kyrgyzstan is the poorest of the 5 countries, but holds many billions of tons of excellent high-quality coal, something China will need in the lead up to carbon peaking in 2035. It also has reserves of oil and gold, and again, an important but less considered resource, ample arable land and an abundance of water. Much of Turkmenistan is desert, and, just like the Middle East, the desert covers huge reserves of natural gas and oil. Uzbekistan is the world's 7th largest producer of gold, but also has reserves of oil and gas. These 5 countries combined, their GDP is currently less than that of Canada, but would amount to about number 10 in the world at current numbers if it was combined. And combining is what they are doing. Kazakhstan, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan all share a border with China, while Turkmenistan borders Iran and Afghanistan. Geopolitically informed readers or listeners can see the significance of this. There are trains running through Xinjiang in western China all the way to Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, into Turkmenistan, and terminating in many different European destinations, importantly, Tehran. Tehran is sanctioned by the G7, but it has a free trade agreement with the Eurasian Economic Union, of which 2 of these countries, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, along with Russia, are members, and a third, Uzbekistan, has observer status. All are neighbors or near neighbors of Afghanistan and Pakistan. China is opening the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor to build a link from Xinjiang through to the Arabian Sea at the port of Gwadar. This is the first meeting of its kind. It indicates there's a change in the air. Central and Eastern Asia not only joining China economically, but physically with trains, roads, gas and oil pipelines, communications infrastructure, as well as improving security and economic agreements. While the G7 harangues its international community to join forces against China, China is doing exactly what the G7 doesn't want them to do, by consolidating relationships, sharing economic benefits with the very countries the G7 have historically exploited. The benefits of roads and trains running through these landlocked countries, the benefits of gas and oil pipelines pumping fuel to power the economy of China and out to the world through ports such as Gwadar, and the fact that each of these countries has aligned itself with China to capitalize on their resources and do business, must surely be causing the G7 much consternation. The easiest way to disrupt the phenomenal potential of the region would be to create instability. And when we consider who benefits from that instability, we know it's not the people who live there. Countries such as Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan have all recently seen instability. China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region is a victim of destabilizing efforts, and no one in any of these locations has benefited, but other people in their modern, developed, international communities certainly do. The Central Asian leaders, as they discuss trade, security, and infrastructure in this meeting, will be well aware that there are factions in the developed world that do not want them to improve. They do not want to congratulate their successors, and most assuredly, they do not want them to participate in a collaborative global leadership that brings benefits to billions rather than bringing billions to their benefit. Thanks once again for watching Jerry's Take on China. I hope to see you again next time. Bye-bye for now.